everyone and welcome back. For this rail fanning trip I started early. I was heading toward Indianapolis but was taking US 50 to Seymour and then north to Avon Yard. Before I made it out of Cincinnati though, I spotted this train along River Road. I didn't know what it was but soon found out through Facebook it was heading to Greensburg, Indiana and back. Once I finished up in Indianapolis, I thought, you know what, I might as well head to Greensburg and see if I can chase it as it makes its way back to the Queen City. Here's the story from some of the folks who also made that trip. Matt Fruchey was the guy at the controls for most of the excursion, but he's more than just an engineer.
My title, I'm the trainmaster in DSLE. DSLE is for Designated Supervisor Locomotive Engineers. And so my job is basically I do function as an engineer and a conductor since I'm certified in both, but I'm in charge of training, certifications. I do all the communication with the FRA, regulatory compliance.
Fruchey also has some office work responsibilities too. He's been with the Cincinnati Railway Company for more than a decade, starting off part-time and then getting involved full-time in the summer of 2018.
We function in a bunch of different ways. We have our regular runs out of Lebanon, Ohio, which are on the Lebanon subdivision. We contract with the Cincinnati Dinner Train for engineers, conductors, and trackage rights, and so we run the Cincinnati Dinner Train on Saturdays. And then this is another aspect through the Cincinnati Scenic Railway, which is a subsidiary, is the nonprofit subsidiary of Cincinnati Railway.
Saturday's run was part of the Ohio Rail Experience.
We try to take the train to places that may not have seen a passenger train in 50 years. And so this one was a trip from Cincinnati to Greensburg, Indiana on the old Big 4 line, which was the Cincinnati to Indianapolis main line Big 4, which became part of the New York Central.
They started at mile marker 4.5 and went to Greensburg, Indiana. They had a 2-hour layover and then made the return trip.
It's just great fun. I mean, I like every bit of it. There's not one thing that when it comes to running a locomotive or being on a train, I love all of it. And this is just a nice change of scenery. It's qualifying on new territory.
That's right, the crew had to be qualified before they could take the train over the tracks.
And the CIND, Central Railroad of Indiana, was wonderful in helping us out and working with us so we could make this trip possible. They were tremendous.
Due to the pandemic, they were not able to make any runs last year.
It's just liberating to be able to be back and doing the things that we love to do and with people that we love to work with. It's just everybody that's here has a tremendous passion for railroading, and the ability to have it as the few of us that have it as a full-time job, but even those that have it as a part-time job. We have several police officers, firefighters, people from all kinds of different backgrounds that work here part-time.
Fruchey and the crew had a packed train with happy passengers. He says they encourage everyone to ask questions.
We love to talk about it, and a lot of people have questions about the equipment and the various cars and the line that we were running on, and who's doing this, how do you manage to do this, and all the other stuff. It's a Herculean task of logistics, getting all this stuff done. We've got our boss, Ray Kammer, is a longtime excursion railroad expert, and so he knows the ways to get this done. Our chief mechanical officer, Scott Jarrett, is very well schooled in all this stuff. My main job is in the actual train operations themselves. Scott and I basically say if between the two of us, I'm trainmaster, he's CMO. If it moves, it's under Scott's jurisdiction. But when it's moving, it's under mine.
Now the most important question, which engine is his favorite? Turns out the nickel plate 901 is pretty special to him.
I've been a long-time fan of the nickel plate road, which was the New York, Chicago, and St. Louis. Came through my hometown of Rocky River, Ohio. And when I was a little boy, I only lived a few blocks away from the tracks. And I remember when that locomotive started running through in the early 1960s when I was about 5 years old. And I remember it was unique to me because it had a low short hood and it was different from all the other nickel plate locomotives. So I saw they had 10 of them, but I always remember the 901, and it was uniquely enough 40 plus years later, that was the very locomotive I took my locomotive engineer tests in my check rides. So it's a locomotive, it's like my old friend, and it likes me too. So
treats you pretty well out there?
It treats me very well back there. We've got a very solid relationship between the two of us.
So we've heard what it's like to control the locomotives on the trip, but what was it like to ride in the passenger cars? James Corbett from Cincinnati was one of the lucky ones inside.
I've been riding passenger trains for about 45 years.
Corbett says it was a great trip.
Just getting out and seeing the countryside and seeing landscape from a different perspective versus driving on the highway and seeing a train go by you at a grade crossing. But and plus you get to relax. They got different style seating. They got coach seating. They got open window cars where you can actually open the window and feel the breeze. They have leg rest, air conditioning car where you can sit and relax and air conditioned comfort. Then like the car I was on was a former nickel plate railroad 5-bedroom lounge observation car, and I ran between Buffalo, New York and Chicago.
He says this experience is like nothing else.
It's just an experience you can't get from like flying in a plane or maybe riding in an inner city bus or a Greyhound. Rail travel is a little bit more relaxed. If you ain't got to be anywhere anytime quick, it's a nice relaxing day to get out and with friends and the people you meet, you might make new friends, and everybody's made some new friends. So it's a nice, comfortable time to get away, and a lot of retired railroad people were on board with me and people I've associated with in the last 20 years and further.
It wasn't just the passengers who were excited for the trip. Along the way, they and the crew were met by eager rail fans taking pictures of the train. Jake Miller is one of them. He's been a rail fan as long as he can remember. He got into the Cincinnati area from Columbus around 8:30 Saturday morning.
I started chasing when they started boarding, so we got going around 9:30 a.m. this morning, and we follow it all the way to Greensburg, and we followed it all the way back.
I asked him what made him and his friends want to follow the train so far.
When they run these trips, it's always just something fun to do anyways. It's a lot more interesting now that all the big Class 1 railroads are now starting to be all identical and stuff. So getting the vintage EMD locomotives out on a train and going on some territory that we really don't get to see that often is it's pretty cool. There's a lot of neat shot opportunities out there too.
I had to know which engine was his favorite.
901, the nickel plate GP30. I like the design, I like the paint. It's a great looking locomotive. Not saying the C&O Jeep isn't cool, it is, but personal bias towards more turbocharged Jeeps.
AJ Evans was also part of the group chasing the train. He came down from the Dayton area.
Tomorrow I'm going to have to work the same train, so I'll have the same opportunity to shoot it, and I enjoy taking pictures just as much as I do working it.
Evans says he loves the photography aspect of it. Plus, he gets to hang out with his friends all day. But he says there's more to it than that.
Getting to do something like this doesn't always come around, you know. This is the first time in a few years that there's been a passenger train on the CIND.
So which locomotive is his favorite?
I would have to say the 5704. I personally like the C&O, though I do love our GP30s. Our nickel plate GP30s are really cool, and now with us bringing also in the chassis unit GP30 we saved from NRE.
And with that, we're back where we started in Cincinnati. It was an incredible day with some beautiful scenery. I'll leave you with the sights and sounds of the trains at each place I caught it. Until our next adventure, I hope you have a great day.